yardstick gives us 15,000 plus. I think the overall space can go from a trillion today to maybe 10 trillion at the peak of the next cycle. I still think it happens this year.
In this interview with Raoul Pal, he discusses the idea of a crypto summer and how we're fast approaching a time of unprecedented financial opportunities. He thinks we've had our recession and that things are only looking up from here. He believes growth will be driven by the imminent onboarding of eager institutions to crypto through the ETF approvals, which he also predicts will happen this year. He thinks consumers who want to avoid the technological hassle of cryptocurrency will also have their chance through these ETFs and many others through mediums like CBDCs. He, in fact, feels like we might finally hit 1 billion users and that the crypto market cap might go as high as $10 trillion. He spotlights the assets he's paying attention to and gives sketchy predictions for the numbers he thinks they'll do. He predicts that Ethereum could go as high as $15,000. He ends this interview by giving advice to newbies. He explains the mindset you need to have to make the most money. Let's get into it.
That's what I think. Ask anybody who's not laid off people from their business, who's not seen a decline in sales, who's not seen a decline in activity. I mean, literally everybody has. Now, it's not just crypto, it's across the board. So I think we have been in recession, and maybe that comes up in the numbers in this quarter and next quarter, because all my forward-looking indicators, which precede that, always showed that we were in recession. So I think the numbers will show recession, but the markets will be trading recovery. It's a complicated world because the actual economy is slowing down, and it's going to be relatively slow for this quarter and next quarter, but the markets priced this in last year, which people can't get their heads around. They're like, we want our recession and we want our crash. It doesn't really work that way because we had it last year. In crypto markets, we were down 80% last year. People kind of have forgotten that. So what the markets are doing is forward-looking. So they're looking forward at where the forward-looking indicators are showing that growth will return, but inflation will continue to fall. Unemployment will rise a bit. So that's a kind of more Goldilocks scenario with economic growth coming back without inflation. So that's what markets have been pricing. That's why crypto's been so strong this year, and stuff like the Nasdaq's been so strong this year. So I'm very optimistic generally, and I think we're in crypto spring, and we'll transition to crypto summer, maybe Q1 of next year. How they're going to use it, so they can be investors in it, which is great because if you think of crypto as an economy, it needs money coming into the economy. Right? Because it can't just be us retail lot, because we've all got our money in the economy. It needs to get new money. So that's why it's part of this global liquidity cycle. So when people get liquidity, they start investing in riskier assets like crypto, and it starts flowing in. So that adds liquidity to the market overall, which means that new projects get more traction, and it filters through the whole ecosystem. So money, like in any economy, this digital economy needs capital coming in. So that's what the institutions bring. Also, it's important because things like ETFs allow investment advisors to allocate people's money. So it's not just like Goldman Sachs putting money in. It's actually all of our money, our savings and investments and that kind of thing. So it allows people to participate in this in ways that they couldn't participate before, because it was harder for them via investment advisors or financial advisors to actually access tokens. But this, when it's an ETF, they turned it into an equity, essentially. From what I understand, they're not getting rejected for no reason. They're actually getting rejected because I think it's either the CME or the CFTC needs to have some component part, and that part needs to be approved and finalized. And it's actually just that. So it's not like, oh, Gary's trying to slow the whole thing down. There's actually one of the component parts of all of these ETFs that require the kind of validation. I think it's from the CME or the CFTC. I'm not sure which one. Probably the CME. That bit needs to come into place. So they're just buying time to get that done. So it depends what price is doing, because had we launched a spot ETF in November last year, nobody would have bought it because the market was going down, or it was feeling terrible. But as the market is recovering and we're in spring, and normally the Q4 is a strong quarter, if you introduce spot Bitcoin and spot ETH ETFs into a rising market, you will start to suck in the investment advisors, the individuals who found it too complicated to hold their own wallets and do all of that kind of stuff. So it really depends what the market is doing. But I think on balance, it's positive. But really, it'll show up in 2024, 2025 when the cycle's fully underway. It just makes an easy way for people who are not used to the digital side of things to just use equities and get their exposure. So yeah, look, overall, longer term, it's very positive. It's just yet another on-ramp. Short term, depends what the price is doing. The price is strong, we'll get a bit of a panic in from the investment advisors and stuff like that. You know, from the work that I've done, if I look at the rate of change of the adoption, the active addresses, it should hit 1 billion this cycle. So what is that? How do we get there? I don't know. But there's a lot of things that people don't even know about, like Ticketmaster has issued 30 million NFTs. People don't realize that. So that was 30 million people who weren't crypto people, but because their Ticketmaster wallet, where they get their tickets for games and shows, they just drop NFTs into them. So, you know, I don't know how we're going to onboard the billion, but it feels like it's coming. It could even be, dare I say it, CBDCs. If somebody launches one, it could be from India, where they're working on their CBDC. So there's a lot of different avenues that will create the billion people.
Spifar Raoul has spoken about the current state of the economy and why he thinks the bad is behind us. He's also touched on the things he believes will cause growth and how much the crypto economy will grow in the coming cycle. Next, he turns his attention to the particular assets he's paying attention to for this cycle and why.
Solana, I think, is going to be the big story of this cycle of the main chains, because they're launching Fire Dancer or Jumpies, which is a different validator. I mean, believe it or not, is going to run at 600,000 to 1.2 million TPS. So this is the fastest thing by a long way. Considering Solana and Polygon are the two fastest chains at 65,000 TPS, and Sui should be about 120,000, but yet to get there. This is just a different order of magnitude. This is 10x the fastest ever thing we've ever seen. And it's not a layer 2, it's just Solana. So this is a game changer. It means the whole finance system can be built on it. It was designed by Jump Trading, who are high frequency traders who understand the latency and sheer capacity requirements for things like exchanges to run. So I think Solana is a very big story. We're seeing a lot of activity there. Look, layer 2s are cheaper, faster. So that works. So, you know, Polygon, Arbitrum, all of that stuff, that probably works very well. And so I think we will see ongoing adoption of those. I don't know what the new Solana will be, but we're seeing a lot of interest both in gaming and also in zero knowledge stuff. And there's also DeFi. So I don't know. It becomes really hard to know which is the big area. But those are the three I hear a lot. But I tend not to go that far out the risk curve just because it's difficult to choose the right thing, you know. But, you know, you figure that if the space is going up, then Bitcoin and ETH will do well and Solana will do well. Solana's got this extra kicker, which is, I think, potentially a game changer. So I think that's probably the layer one that does, the big layer one that does the best in the cycle. Then we've got the kind of Aptos and Suis and those kind of things. Let's see how they do, what traction they get. The layer 2s will be interesting. And then these other kind of applications, as I said. I think we've all learned not to give price expectations anymore, because people trying to take them as gospel, and as opposed to, hey, this is my best guess knowing what I know today. But generally speaking, if ETH does what Bitcoin did last cycle, then it's 3 to 4 times the high of the previous cycle. Mm-hmm. So therefore, you know, that kind of yardstick gives us 15,000 plus. That doesn't sound unreasonable. That's a 10x from here. That's possible. That would be within the realms of normality. And then something like Bitcoin, maybe it does slightly less because it's a more mature ecosystem, and something like Solana would do significantly more. So that's how I think about it. I think the overall space can go from $1 trillion today to maybe 10 trillion at the peak of the next cycle. So that's a 10x for the whole space, possibly. Could be a 5x, but you know, it's something of that magnitude. If we're right in a hypothesis that more and more people will use blockchain technology for underlying use cases, if that's the case, yeah. This is to do with the business cycle. Mm-hmm. It's actually not to do with the halving cycle. And It's happening to technology stocks. It's happening to everything. It's happening to commodities. So everything is in this very cyclical world. So it's something we have to get used to. But I think the cyclicality over time becomes less. So each drawdown in crypto, the overall market falls less. And you can use Bitcoin as the best example. Each time it just falls a little bit less. So maybe next time around it falls 60% and not 75%. And previous time was 87%. The previous time to that was 97%. You know, ETH fell in 2018, 97%. This time it fell 85%. Maybe next time it's 75%. You know, so volatility does get dampened as more participants come into the space and the more activity. And eventually, once you get kind of financial market activity where, let's say, equities are tokenized and stuff like that, well, then there's ongoing demand for activity on chain as well. So it's not just based around liquidity, it's just about general activity using blockchain technology. So look, we're not out of the woods yet. My guess is we have to keep going through this miserable cycle of I'm rich, I'm poor every few years until maybe 2030. The biggest problem new investors face is themselves.
Okay.
Right? It's like FOMO and excessive narratives, excessive tribalism are all the things that will get you into trouble. You need to always step back, understand what risks you're taking, why you're taking those risks, and try and fight the FOMO. Have a plan and try and stick to that plan. Yes, you can adapt it. And then be careful where you get your information from. You know, there's a lot of trust people in the space, but there's a lot of people that seem alluring because they want to tell you you're going to get rich. Now, yes, there's plenty of opportunity to make money in all of this, but just choose trusted sources. Be careful who you follow and don't become trapped in one narrative. Things change. This is technology. It's markets that you will be feeling really miserable with yourself because your tokens are down 75% in 3 years' time. Expect that to be normal. And if that's part of your plan and your time horizon, then that's okay. If your time horizon is to try and get out somewhere in the peak, you'll never time the peak perfectly and you'll have FOMO and feel miserable about it. I never forgot when I bought my Bitcoin at 200. I sold out 2,500 in the forking wars when I didn't understand what was going on. Price was starting to go vertical. I'm like, listen, I've made 10x my money. This is an amazing investment. It then went up another 10x in the next 6 months. I mean, that's enough to drive you insane, but that's what will happen to you. You know, you will close out too early or close out too late. All of this stuff, it's okay. The best thing to do is get yourself an education in how to invest and how to think about this stuff.
Finally, Raoul ends by talking about his advice for new investors. In this video, Raoul Pal has spoken extensively and positively about the times ahead. He's also touched on Solana and how he believes it will be the big narrative of the upcoming cycle. He closed out with advice for new investors and detailed what to expect. To see the latest in crypto news, watch the next video here.